Hello, this is the coding demonstration for Group 3, and for the demonstration, we did it on carrier sense multiple access with collision detection protocol, and this is a type of multiple access protocol used to handle collisions between two transmitting stations, and it's mostly used in Ethernet networks where computers can sense the channel's activity. And the protocol works by having computers, which are connected to a common channel, listen for collisions as they're transmitting signals to the channel. And in the event that a collision occurs, which is when two stations or computers send signals at the same time to the same channel, in the event that that occurs, the computers will abort their transmissions and each wait a random amount of time before transmitting again. So this works by there's three different states to this demonstration. There's the ideal scenario state, which just shows an ideal scenario where the computers each have an opportunity to transmit signals to the channel without a collision occurring. You'll see right here. And also text will appear here, which indicates what is happening. So you can see node 2 is transmitting while node 1 and node 3 are waiting their turns. Node 3 transmits as 1 and 2 are waiting, and this will just go on. And collision will simulate a collision occurring between two computers. In this case, it'll be computer 1 and 2. You'll see there transmit signals, and then a collision will occur, which will cause both of the computers to abort their transmissions. And then take turns simulates how the protocol uh, resolves the issue of a collision occurring, and where each computer will abort their transmission and wait a random amount of time before transmitting again. So in this case, computer 2 ran first, or starts to transmit signals first, and then computer 1 transmits signals first. And that's how the coding demonstration works. Now, how it was implemented, I used HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So for the HTML portion of the demonstration, I just define the headers, and the buttons, which control all the parts of the simulation, and also define a canvas space, which just is where all the animation occurs, and also a div area where all the text appears depending on what is happening in the simulation. For the CSS, it's just structuring the data, or structuring the website so it looks nice. And for the JavaScript, this is where the actual functionality occurs. And in the JavaScript, there's three main functions which control all of the animation. Well, I guess four main functions. There's reset, ideal scenario, collision, and take turns. And how this uh, demonstration works is that we have an event listener that uh, runs as soon as the DOM is loaded, which will run this method called simulation, which just runs a method which gives all of the buttons its functionalities. So the first method that's used is the reset method, and the reset method just reloads the page, which will allow all the other simulations to run smoothly. Um, and the other method is ideal scenario. Ideal scenario has two related methods. It has ideal scenario and ideal scenario helper. Ideal scenario works by basically generating a random number between 1, 2, or 3, and setting it to this variable called decider, and also generating a random number which determines how much time a computer will be given to transmit. And it also has a function called sim, which actually does all of the animation. And depending on the number generated by decider, it'll decide which computer node decides to transmit signals. So if decider generates 1, then the animation will run for computer 1 where it sends signals. If decider is 2, then computer 2 will have the animation where it sends signals, and if it generates 3, then it'll have the animation where it's sending signals from computer 3, or transmitting signals. And this whole function sim is run once within the function ideal scenario, and also it returns the decider variable, and all of this is returned into the ideal scenario helper function, which takes the return value from ideal scenario, saves it, and in this function it basically reruns ideal scenario over and over again, and depending on the value of decider that was returned, it will also, using this switch statement, print out custom data to indicate what's happening in the animation. So if node 1 ran its animation where it's transmitting signals to the channel, then it will also edit the inner HTML of this div to show that node 1 is transmitting and the other 2 nodes are waiting. And basically, depending on if computer 2 transmits data or computer 3 transmits data, it'll print out a message corresponding to what it's doing. And the collision simulation function is kind of like related to the other function, which is taking turns. And the collision simulation function just simulates the event of a collision happening. So it'll have this function called simulation, which does the animation part of the collision. And then once the animation runs, it will print out the text, or it'll edit the HTML of this div to indicate that that the collision occurred. As you can see here, node 1 is transmitting, node 2 is transmission, and the error collision. And taking turns, which is related to the collision simulation function, basically simulates the part of the protocol where each computer is given a random amount of time to wait, and runs individually once their individual random timers are up. And how this works is that it'll generate a decider, a random number, which decides which computer goes first, computer 1 or computer 2. And also generates transmission times, which determine how long each computer will transmit signals for. And if decider is equal to 1, then it's going to run the part where it's going to run the animation where computer 1 sends signals first as computer 2 is waiting, and then computer 2 will send signals. But if decider is equal to 2, it'll basically do the opposite, and computer 2 will do the animation where it sends signals while computer 1 waits, and then after computer 2 is done, computer 1 will send signals. And another important function, redraw setup, that just is a function that helps with the animation process and just kind of redraws the background. So this is just redrawing what the picture is on canvas, on the canvas every time it refreshes. And that's pretty much how it works. I mean, all these buttons are doing is running an animation that simulates a a state in the CSMA CD protocol. And that's how it works.